This week, trolling Microsoft with vulnerabilities, Fable 5 loves the guardrails, a Binwalk vulnerability, EMBA in local models, EDRChoker, AI worms, an interesting Arista vulnerability added to the KEV, the Binding Operational Directive 26-04, bringing your own execution environment, Homelab tips, MikroTik routers are interceptors, Ivanti Sentry, and the irony. Smart TV botnets, privacy laws, Solarwinds Serv-U lives on. More Cisco SD-WAN fun. Russia can jam GPS. No nudes for you, says the UK government. And why would someone want to learn to code when AI does it better and faster? All that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. Coming to you from Hacker Syndicate Studios, this is Paul's Security Weekly. It's episode number 930, being recorded on Wednesday, June 10th, 2026. I'm Paul Sidorian, joined by Mr. Dave Johnson. Dave, welcome.
Hey, good to be here.
Is that your actual background, or is that a virtual background?
This is real life.
It looks very nice.
Flickering lamp placed above my head in case I have a good idea.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Mr. Sam Bound is here with us. Sam, welcome.
Good evening, and you might be amazed to know this is my real room too.
Yes, I could tell. Mr. Lee Neely is here with us. Lee, welcome.
Hey, it's good to be here, and the illusion of my nice rainscoting is intact because it's real.
There you go. Quick announcement before we dig into it. If you're in the SOC, you already know the pain. Too many alerts, not enough context, and attackers slipping through the cracks. Now AI-driven attacks in increasingly complex environments add that into the mix. You can go to the AI for Next Gen SOC Virtual Cybersecurity Summit on June 24th. Learn how to actually apply AI for detection engineering, threat hunting, and reducing false positives without breaking your workflows. Security Weekly listeners can register for free at securityweekly.com/nextgensoc. Use the promo code CSS26-SW. A lot of S's and C's in there. That's actually really, really cool. It's one of the things that I've been talking about recently is we have all this AI for vulnerability research, for security research, for reverse engineering, for building worms. But where's the AI that helps me apply patches faster in my environment? I don't think that's been addressed. Hopefully they talk about it on June 24th. Let's see, what do we got for news articles this week? I guess we gotta start with Microsoft. Oh boy. We're still talking about this nightmare Eclipse persona or person. It reads like it's one individual. I just also I love this. This is a throwback to the day where researchers would hide behind a name, a fictitious name, and drop O-Day and poke fingers at big companies. I'm not gonna lie, I'm probably gonna get flack for this, but I'm enjoying this. I'm sitting back with my popcorn, remembering the old days when we used to drop O-Day and poke the finger of the bear, which is exactly what Nightmare Eclipse is doing in the most epic way possible. You're going to troll Microsoft. I can't think of a better way to do it than dropping O-Day on Patch Tuesday for something that's not in Patch Tuesday. That is a direct finger in the eye to Microsoft.
And some other places.
I know our friends that work at Microsoft and are not necessarily happy hearing me say that, but I get both sides. So don't be too upset at me, but I get both sides. I don't know. I fight for the users, I guess. So what do you guys think of this drop? Do you want some more little tidbits? All right, I'll give you a couple more tidbits. So Nightmare Eclipse, also known as Chaotic Eclipse or Dead Eclipse, is relentlessly dropping zero-day disclosures against Microsoft since early April 2026. They've released exploits to coincide with Patch Tuesday for 3 consecutive months. I did not know that was timing done on purpose more than once. They have a grudge with Microsoft. The latest thing the researcher said was Microsoft left them homeless with nothing. I think that was just a play on words. I don't truly believe the person's homeless, but they took down his GitHub accounts and GitLab accounts. This is an AI summary. I've read the articles that back it. I was just using it to generate notes. My AI says the community split on whether they're a whistleblower or a threat actor. Probably true. I think there's kind of a split there. So June 2026, which was yesterday's Patch Tuesday, Nightmare Eclipse published Rogue Planet, proof of concept exploiting a race condition in Microsoft Defender, spawning a system-level shell on fully patched Windows 10 and 11. They posted on X taunting Microsoft. Someone tell Microsoft they forgot to add Rogue Planet. That's just like icing on the trolling cake. ThreatLocker, who's a sponsor of ours, independently reproduced the exploit, confirming it's real, though their application allow list blocking it by default, which is, I mean, that's pretty awesome for ThreatLocker, right? Like they can reproduce it and their product blocks it, like hat tip. I mean, they're a sponsor, full disclosure, but like I'm not going to dispute that. That's pretty cool, sponsor or not. But the June Patch Tuesday did patch two prior Nightmare Eclipse disclosures, Green Plasma and Mini Plasma. And Microsoft had comments on that one. But Rogue Planet remains unpatched. I don't think they have a yellow key patch, but they have a workaround. That was one that I wrote about. The final thing here was like I said, GitHub and GitLab removed the repos. The researcher now has their own independent hosting infrastructure and continues to distribute code through the alternate platforms. And I tried to include a table, but my markdown wasn't working correctly. But if you prompt an LM, I like using Claude Sonnet for, I think I'm Sonnet 4.6. I think Perplexity gives me Sonnet 4.6 as an option. I can kind of choose my own model. And I use that for a lot of my searching online, so I'm not burning any Opus related tokens. So what do you guys think?
So actually, when as this guy continues, I remember of a line you used with your kids whenever they try something and are amazed what you do, and it's like, you forget what I do for a living.
Right.
This guy is clearly very good at the vulnerability discovery, and this is one Microsoft shouldn't be holding him at arm's length. They should be pulling him in and leveraging the hell out of him.
Which they used to do. I mean, I think it was Jack Daniel, hi Jack, that made a comment on some of our social posts, right? That got back to us, or was communicated back to us, that, like Microsoft in responsible and coordinated disclosure, because that's never been a hot mess before. And while I agree, Jack, it has been, I think there have been times where it has been better than others, and now we're in another lull. I don't think that I communicated that effectively last week. But if you go into our archives, right, we interviewed, and I'll leave this as resource because I don't want to throw the person under the bus, and because I don't know why the person left Microsoft at all. I have no insider knowledge, but we interviewed someone from MSRC, and we had the conversation. We got clearance from Microsoft to talk about it, and I told them I was going to ask the question, like, hey, why is it contentious sometimes between Microsoft and researchers? They answered the question. We had a great discussion about it. There's two sides to every story. I think that the MSRC at the time, and this person's kind of advice was, hey, look, give us all the details. A lot of times back then in MSRC, they would reject things because there's just not enough information. Now you've got an LLM. So even if you found the vulnerability, creating documentation and tests for it, provided you validate those findings with the LLM and validate the descriptions that the LLM generates, I think you can have a really good vulnerability disclosure. Mm-hmm. But now we fast forward to today, and my opinion is Microsoft saying we're in another lull. Like, they're not doing a great job working with researchers again. So I think this has gone in fits and starts. And some have said like, oh, well, a lot of folks left MSRC, leadership has changed. I looked up the person that we interviewed on the show, and they have since left MSRC. I wasn't sure of the exact, dates or times. So I'll leave that as an exercise to the readers. Again, I don't want to like, in this context, like out someone like that.
No, don't out them. I'm just thinking about a friend of ours who started Microsoft's bug bounty stuff going, and I'm thinking she probably have some spicy comments along this line.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Katie Mazuris was instrumental. We can even go back even before Katie and like the original early 2000s, Microsoft inviting hackers in. Mm-hmm. Sam, you were referencing I think you and I both were at a university at the time when network worms were first running around.
And at that time, Microsoft, when it all started in like 2002, Microsoft was incredibly hostile. And then by 2012, they bought us all beer at TorCon and started having the Blue Hat Conference where they'd bring you in. They said, we've decided to be friends with the hacker community. We don't hate you anymore. Sounds like they changed their tune again, but I'm sure these things go in and out of fashion.
Yeah, but then after that, what was Microsoft's web technology? It wasn't ActiveX. It was some other.
Well, there was the Active
browser.
Desktop in Windows 98 that got them in a world of trouble.
Yeah, but I think it was after that. Like I think it was HD Moore and other people had like a month of ActiveX bugs. Was it ActiveX?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
ActiveX was a disaster, and it took about 10 years to make them just turn it off.
Yeah, and like they put so much pressure on it, and they wouldn't honor any of the disclosures, so they just kept publishing the thing. So like, yeah, Jack's right. We've got a rich history here, and we don't want to see the bad history repeat itself.
Well,
I don't agree with Microsoft. I don't think. I mean, Microsoft alluded they were treating Nightmare Eclipse as a threat actor, and other companies have followed suit. I think that's wrong. I think we're right back to that disclosure debate we've been having for over 25 years.
That's politics. Everything goes in and out of fashion.
Right. But it's promoting I don't want to say bad behavior, but it's promoting not the right behavior in disclosure. I've handled, some disclosures myself, and you don't want to provoke the researcher from going down the path of just disclosing it when there's no patch. And sometimes that's unavoidable. I've been in that situation. We've had to do it. And where I work in my day job, it's public knowledge. We give vendors 90 days to address the issue. Also, if you need more than 90 days and you'd like to work with us on that, we're more than happy to work with you on that. Now, there's obviously limitations to that, but we've had to do that a number of times, especially ones that are kind of deep-rooted in the supply chain, right? It can take, the upstream vendor produces a fix, but it's going to take time for other people to actually push that fix out. So we give them a little more time, and that's okay. Zero Trust is clearly the future as threats get faster, quieter, and harder to detect. But implementing it shouldn't disrupt the business. ThreatLocker enforces default deny and execution in a way that remains enterprise-ready, scalable, and operationally clean. Unknown software is stopped cold, trusted apps stay contained, and drift is locked down across the environment. It's Zero Trust that works in real enterprises and prepares you for the threats ahead. See why CISOs are adopting it at securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker.
Yeah, Microsoft needs to understand we have this pesky thing called the First Amendment. My lawyer told me full disclosure is legal. You can do that. Mm-hmm. Now, you might not want to. I don't do it because I don't want the bad reputation. But the fact is, they can't prosecute you for it.
Right. I mean, they can still sue you. Anyone can sue anyone in the U.S. They can still sue you.
But you have a strong defense.
Right. But still a lawsuit kind of thing. I hope it doesn't go there. The legal route.
Well, Microsoft said they're not going to prosecute Nightmare Eclipse, so hopefully they won't.
Hopefully they just fix the stuff. I don't understand why.
I've heard this is how Microsinovich got in. He was like a teenager in Russia, and he kept sending in bugs to Windows until they finally bought his company and integrated him into the company because he kept on finding stuff they didn't know about Windows. That's what you do. These researchers clearly know a lot about your product, arguably know more about your product than you do.
Right. Give them a job. I agree.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the latest there. Dave, any thoughts there? Sitting on a lot of Windows O Day yourself?
Yeah, it's just, it's so familiar. It's, I was thinking about how certain types of clothing are coming back in style from around the
Right.
time when this was the common, this sort of altercation, as it were, was common. And it seems like it's just properly timed. Not that those two things are actually correlated. It's just convenient.
Mm.
I mean, we know how this goes. At some point, it'll become more common. It'll kind of get back on the rails as far as responsible disclosure is concerned. I think if more of this occurs, I think it's going to depend on kind of the existing culture of people who are finding vulnerabilities and where they choose to disclose them. Are they going to sell them to threat actors, or are they going to do this? I guess the question is it more dangerous to, is it less responsible disclosure in this case, to disclose it publicly without being able to go through Microsoft versus sell it to a threat actor who's going to use it surreptitiously until it is maybe, hopefully, eventually caught by somebody else.
Or fixed, or the vendor finds out about it either from themselves or another researcher. I mean, there's so many cases where more than one researcher has discovered and reported the same vulnerability. That happened recently in my very close circle. That happened, which is interesting, right? And so a lot of the I'll sell it on the black market thing is kind of, I don't know, I call it the black market, the underground. I don't know what you want to call it. But if you sell it, there's a lot of, I was listening to a podcast about, they like dug into like the pros and cons of selling it. Like, will you actually get your money? You often don't get all the money up front, right? You give them at what point do you give them the working exploit, and then how long do you maintain it? And typically it's like a payment system. Like, I'm not giving you my exploit to at least give me something, like 25% of the agreed upon amount. And then, every month or 3 months where that exploit continues to work, you get the next 25%. And then if it stops working because the vendor patched it, then you don't get the rest of your money. It's kind of the way I understood it. I've never sold anything like that before, but
remember the guys that would dump an exploit and then short the stock? That's another way to go.
You could do, yeah. I mean, both of which I'm not sure entirely. Well, I mean, selling it, the ethics can be debated. Shorting the stock is, I don't know, ethically, morally, probably not the right thing to do, but
it seems like a great way to get the SEC on your case.
Yeah, because you'd have to do it before you drop the exploit.
Yeah, it's a SEC generating event.
Yeah. So but we're setting a bad precedent now with Microsoft. Microsoft they're shooting themselves in the foot. They're setting a bad. So now the next researcher that's sitting on a big Windows 0 day, now you're questioning it. Like, what are you going to do? You're like, I really don't want my GitHub repo to be taken down because that's a pain in the butt. And I really don't want to get sued. So, like, what do I do?
Well, that's part of your story that surprised me. I mean, developing an exploit on a public code platform is nuts. I mean, you clearly should run it on a private server.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be doing that stuff on GitHub. You're asking for it.
Well, particularly if you're finding a Microsoft flaw on a Microsoft service like GitHub, right? What could possibly go wrong, Sam?
Yeah, I know. This is why you have private GitLab installs,
Right. Then you got to maintain it yourself, which is a pain in the butt. But
yeah.
When you're developing malware, you can't be in a public system. I mean,
yeah,
it's true. Then there's also the people in glass houses shouldn't throw rocks. I mean, come on. But you know what? I think he's just trying to make a point that he was fine for years doing this, and it's like, what the hell, guys? Come on. And I wonder if he's got the willingness to play nice with them ultimately. Although I think there's too much water under the bridge at this point.
Yeah, could be.
That, yeah.
Where do you want to go next?
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask you, do you want to talk about SD-WAN or do you want to talk about that?
SD-WAN is what a hot mess of a platform. I just,
a month ago, it was kind of cool, but not today.
Yeah, I'm not like the world's foremost expert on Cisco's SD-WAN appliances or technology.
No.
I did look into it a little bit when these first round of these vulnerabilities were coming out. I think it was earlier this year. And I pretty quickly determined they're just Linux systems. Although there's a lot of products under the Cisco SD-WAN umbrella. And the ones that I looked at, when I looked at it's like one of the first ones, and they had published like indicators of compromise. And the IOCs, or IOCs, if you will, were all like clearly Linux based. Like I looked at the IOCs and they were like, you need to look for this, this, and this. I'm like, that's just a Linux system. Okay, so that's one thing. Why the code base in this particular product is so poor, I don't know. But there seems to be just like tons of SD-WAN stuff.
I mean, what I'm looking at this is like I'm seeing vulnerability after vulnerability, and some of which are, I think the latest round is not patched yet. And this one, the latest is, what is it? It's untrusted input, right? I remember that, right? Just, I'm guessing they haven't done anything because they're trying to look for all the places they're trusting untrusted input. But this is the 7th SD-WAN issue this year, by the way.
Wow. It's pretty easy to find this kind of thing with AI now.
You think?
Yeah.
Next thing you're going to tell me that Cisco is one of the folks using AI to find vulns.
Apparently not enough.
Well, they did. That was last week's story.
Yeah. Oh, maybe that's how they found this one. Okay.
It could be.
Yeah.
It could be.
I just was kind of like, what the heck? Okay. Look, I mean, I know it's rough when you got vulnerabilities and you're discovering it. I know we got a bubble with all the AI discovery going on. I get that, but
yeah, and
I'm just glad I'm not Cisco. I don't work in the Cisco software team or Oracle or Microsoft or one of those other guys where there's just so much stuff and history, right? Because you know what it's like maintaining somebody else's code and finding all the little glitches, let alone you add something and it has an over here and has an effect over there.
Well, right now we're cleaning up decades of technical debt. Hopefully this will only last a few months and then it will decline.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to look up SD-WAN vulnerabilities. There's a lot of, Cisco has over 500 CVEs they've issued in the last year because they have so many products. Let me just filter for ones on the Kev. Only CISA Kev. 14 vulnerabilities just on the Kev, not SD-WAN specific, but they have 14 vulnerabilities on the Kev. They have one from February, CV 2026-20127 is a Kev exploited SD-WAN vulnerability. Then they have one from June 4th, which is probably the most recent one that you're looking at. But then it goes back to, no, that's iOS XE. The manager one was also February. It's Catalyst SD-WAN Manager and Catalyst SD-WAN. There's like the products are dizzying.
Well, while you're at it, Paul, how many Fortinet SD-WANs are there?
That's a good question.
I don't see any results in the Kev specifically for Fortinet SD-WAN.
Okay.
I can tell you in the last year, Fortinet has 184 that I can find in public CVE databases. and they're for like, they again have a lot of products, but only says a Kev takes it to 7. And I don't see
comparable. Yeah.
I don't see Fortinet's SD-WAN on any of the Kev ones. They do have an SD-WAN product. I'm not sure if it has vulnerabilities or not.
Yeah, they do.
It does.
Yeah.
In the Kev list, the only results I see. Oh no, there's one. Okay, I was gonna say, it looks like it's all Cisco, but there's a Versa and Citrix, a couple of Citrix and VMware. A lot of Citrix. Bit old though.
See, I thought the SD-WAN is like where companies were going to get around this network edge issue.
Well, it was, also software-defined networking to, for cloud and stuff. I mean, you're throwing away the perimeter. Well, you're throwing away the physical perimeter. You're making it all out of software.
Right. But it still requires appliances.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Some of those are SaaS hosted, I want to say. I think Fortinet, you can get a SaaS hosted SD-WAN.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, I think I've said it every show, like, you're going to try and find and fix these vulnerabilities in your own environment, or you're going to use a big company SaaS product and they're going to fix it once and fix it for all the customers. I mean,
so, that's actually one of the things I think we've talked about before with, using SaaS hosted stuff is one of the mitigations to this influx or ongoing crash of vulnerabilities is, using where somebody else is in charge of keeping some of your stuff patched like that, so that you still have to focus on your part of the security window, but anything to relieve the pressure of this treadmill. I mean, till we get past. I mean, I know this is growing pains, and we'll get past it. But I'm thinking, it's the old work smarter, not harder, right? Am I just full of cliches tonight?
You are. Yeah,
welcome to cybersecurity.
Okay. This was along with Google Chromium V8, but also Arista EOS, Extensible Operating System. Now, the Arista one was interesting. I somehow found this one when they published their vendor advisory. When did they publish their vendor advisory? That's a good question. Because that's a really good question. Yeah. Because this was like a weird one where Arista published their advisory on May 5th. That's what it says. And so nice. I saw this. But in their advisory published on May 5th, they referenced the CVE ID 2026-7473. However, I couldn't find that in any public CVE database at the time. And this is one of the issues that we have that I knew we had and somehow forgot, is that when I query public CVE databases and I'm like, show me all the Arista CVEs, if Arista has published a security advisory, a vendor security advisory to their site with a CVE inside of it, but they haven't pushed that to the public databases, my search misses that.
Yeah.
So for about a month, that was the case. The only reference to this is if you were following Arista security advisories. Now, you can go create a system that crawls all the vendor advisories and indexes them for you. And when you've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and a whole team of people to go do that and suffered through a lot of pain and suffering, that's hard, right? And so that's one of the problems we have with vulnerability data. So when this advisory was published, it says right here in the description, this issue has been reported as being exploited in the wild. They said that on May 5th. It didn't end up in the CISA Kev until yesterday. So June.
So that means there wasn't
June 8th.
enough exploitation in the wild to trigger their
Or
whatever their
CISA
threshold
wasn't
is.
aware of it, right? CISA has to get a report from being exploited in the wild from one of their trusted providers, and who knows? Arista may have found it in a customer. That's typically like Cisco does that if they do something for a customer in a support case, and they're like, oh, like your device is compromised. Well, how did that happen? Oh, they deployed this new malware or exploited this new vulnerability we didn't know about, and therefore now they can say, well, exploitation in the wild. But that doesn't trigger a CISA KEV because CISA has to get the data, they have to validate it, and then issue the KEV.
So maybe what I should have said as threshold is their Cisco triggering event. I mean, CISA triggering event hadn't happened yet.
Right.
Because that's really what I meant. Because, I mean.
This one's the Arista one is super weird too. Because Arista says in the advisory, no software upgrade path is planned. So it means there's no patch for this. And they're only providing configuration-based mitigations. ACLs around the tunnel de-encapsulation process. This vulnerability has to do with encapsulating traffic in like VPN kind of stuff, and also what was the other thing? Like other encapsulating network protocols. So it means your vuln scanner may miss this, or at least misreport it. Because while Arista does list the affected platforms and versions, just because it's on that version doesn't mean it's necessarily vulnerable. The vulnerabilities in the vulnerability and the fix are in the configuration. So you have to unwind both of those and hope that your configuration auditing picks up on this. And so this is when you're likely going to miss. And it's an interesting one because there was exploitation. It wasn't in the CVE databases. And then CISA issued the KEV. I'm like, the story just keeps getting better and better.
Is there a tool to do configuration auditing for all your stuff like a vuln scanner?
Yeah, most vuln scanners have that built in. In fact, I wasn't on the team, but I was heavily involved in the development and QA process when I was at Tenable for that exact feature for configuration auditing. And that was
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was pre-2015. So, but I mean, it has to do.
Good.
It has to know. The companies like Tenable have to define. That's what part of I was helping with. What's a good configuration versus a bad configuration versus a vulnerable configuration versus a not vulnerable configuration. So I was more so providing guidance of here are the things we should look for to indicate a good versus bad configuration.
Right.
So that's it's pretty nuts. I like using that Arista one as an example because it's got a lot going on and the story got even better. I think I talked about it before, but new information.
Nice. So I actually had two stories that I was trolling you with there, Paul.
Yeah.
My first one about the healthcare breach situation where basically 1 in 3 Americans' information has been breached in 2025. Which, I mean, I'm the healthcare industry is working to raise the bar. We can get into whether they're doing it fast enough or whatever, right? But kind of blows that they keep getting popped. But at this point, all we can really do is like make sure we got our monitoring and ID protection right. It's the old, do you wait for them to fix the problem or do you get proactive? I'd say go proactive. And it's not perfect, but it's what you can do. But the cool things that's changed since the first thing I had my stuff breached, thanks OPM, was that a lot of places now offer identity monitoring credit stuff like as a customer, or very inexpensively. Like one of my credit unions has a thing for like $7 a month that includes that and a bunch and insurance for your phone and roadside assistance, and it's like for $7 a month, I can't. Sure, that's 70. What is that? 7 plus 12, $82 a year.
Mm-hmm.
I can't buy LifeLock or some of the others for $82 a year. And so I'd say, hey, before you go spend money, go look around if you don't already belong somewhere that has your stuff, and then go make sure all your stuff is monitored. I used to really creep me out putting all that sensitive information in somebody else's server, but it's kind of like survival, right?
Yeah, at this point, it's better to do so, considering the quantity of breaches. Also, freeze your credit unless you're using it every day. If you have small children, freeze their credit as well. They don't need it right now.
But don't freeze the kids.
No. Yeah, probably not the best. They'll shatter if you drop them. But credit monitoring is like the whole fix part of it is probably the biggest thing. There's not the fix as far as the user is concerned, the person impacted, is credit monitoring doesn't really fix the problem. It's kind of a Band-Aid. And you can give me, I think by now I have like 3 credit monitoring services that I don't pay for as a result of breaches. And that's been the settlement. The class action, $4 free credit monitoring, whatever it turns out to be, doesn't really roll back the clock on the damage that was done. Although now, I guess the question is it really that impactful, considering pretty much everybody's social security number, et cetera, is now public knowledge at this point, effectively, because it's all been stolen. So like, has that reduced the impact of this? Because it's effectively
I've been
done.
Really distracted while you're talking, because when I freeze my children, they get freaked out when you unfreeze them, and they have hibernation sickness and they can't see.
Yeah. It's also an episode of Bluey where like they freeze the parents and they have to like stay there, and then they like paint their hair and stuff.
But this is it's a difficult situation, and I feel like the elephant in the room is we kind of alluded to colleges and universities in the early 2000s struggle, but I think colleges and universities may struggle with cybersecurity the most for a lot of reasons, and I feel like healthcare in general is kind of right on the heels of that. And oftentimes they're intertwined, right? You've got a lot of healthcare organizations that are intertwined with a college or university as well. Yeah. But I think they're both very challenging environments to provide that security and integrity of the data and privacy of the data.
100%. I mean, at a university or college, you're dealing with tens of thousands of insider threats.
Right.
Every student there doesn't work for you, but they are a client of yours. They're a user that you have very little control over, and they want to bring their own device.
BYOD everything.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then their prefrontal cortexes are not complete yet, so they're going to be messing around on the network.
College should, and universities, right, should be that free and open environment, right, for learning.
Well, if you're smart.
Well, and it contradicts the providing good cybersecurity is taking away that usability, right?
Yeah.
And freedom. But colleges and universities, right, Sam? I mean, we've all, we spent time in colleges. We worked for colleges. We went. I think all 4 of us went to college. Did you go to URI? Is that what you went?
I lived there. I didn't technically attend, but I went to classes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I went to Bryant, right? So, but that, and I worked at Brown University, right? And you grow, I'm conflicted because I do like to see that free, open environment. I benefit from that. We used to do crazy shenanigans. I was in, the computer department, but I also in the science department. And I was like the computer guy in the science department, and my teacher gave me like all kinds of freedoms and liberties to do like cool computer stuff, right? And there was, not a lot of things that were stopping me from doing that, including security. Now, I went to school in the 90s. I'm sure now it's a little harder, but we still need to promote those freedoms and liberties so people can learn, right? And getting hacked is a learning experience.
True. But I remember as a non-student, but also being a pivotal part of some of their repair orgs in kind of trying to make the system that they had easier for a student to bring in a laptop and to have it be fixed in a relatively timely manner at the repair shop. that in itself required you to be aware of the security in place at the time. And it was fairly eye-opening kind of how the whole permission structure was, which required significant change once that was discovered and presented.
Right.
But then on to healthcare organizations. And to your point, yeah, when they're intertwined, it's even riskier. And colleges also commonly use students as their analyst team. So, which is a great learning experience, but also you have to be really careful because, you know, those are folks who've never seen certain types of things before, and don't know how to act. And so for healthcare organizations, they commonly have to move big files around really quickly. Security gets relaxed due to like the impact of human life as a result of not being able to access a thing.
Right. It's
It's an
usability.
emergency. Yeah.
Yeah.
So somebody's like, you can't have permissions to access that. And you're like, yeah, but the patient's coding. We need this now.
Right.
And then
someone needs to see their imaging. How do we get it across the network?
Right.
And how do we, and it, you know, in both cases for colleges, universities, and healthcare, things have gotten a lot better in the past 25 years, but it still leaves them as very, I think, open environments to data breaches and security incidents, for sure.
I've seen the largest.
I mean, I remember back in the day,
Yeah.
we were all of us that collectively worked for security in colleges and universities. We would have this debate about whether Wi-Fi should be open or whether we should make people have some kind of authentication to it, right? And that was literally a debate that we had. And you can see the old college spirit. Wi-Fi should be free and open and access for anyone. And we were like, whoa. That opens us to a lot of attacks. And so now, of course, it's commonplace to have secure Wi-Fi networks and open guest Wi-Fi networks. Like all that is common now. And we had to evolve in our policies and procedures, and technology had to evolve to bring us to the place we are today.
I've seen the largest hockey stick on security for the healthcare industry over the past 5 or 6 years, though. So I seem to recall COVID disrupted the threat actor economy quite a bit.
Yep.
And it seemed like all of a sudden they started attacking hospitals and healthcare organizations. The gloves were off. It was sort of a gentleman's agreement to not do that thing. And all of a sudden they said, hey, why do we have this? Why don't we, they have money. Why don't we go get some of it and, you know, do a terrible thing unless they give it to us? And right after that started, I started seeing rapid maturity in the healthcare sector. All of a sudden, security Christmas happened for a lot of people, and they started opening up budgets and buying stuff. Right before then, I remember being in a hospital and looking at the Wi-Fi and immediately being able to see from the guest network things that you should not have seen from the guest network, should not have had accessible. And it was a large hospital network. It wasn't just the one. And so, and that didn't surprise me at all because I had been exposed to other things like that pretty consistently. Now it seems like that maturity is happening and gaining footing. Manufacturing as well seems to be coming around. I'm starting to hear more manufacturing organizations applying, having board members with cybersecurity backgrounds, and that seems to be driving initiatives that were otherwise not really interesting because it wasn't like, hey, we're in manufacturing. We don't make something that's, we make things that are tangible, and security is not a tangible good that we can purchase and potentially resell or amortize and touch and feel.
Yeah. Sorry, Lee, you said you had another story for us.
Actually, so a little different note, but totally in your wheelhouse, Paul, was my number 4, using LLMs to secure source code. I thought,
and we're talking about the other model they released as well.
Yeah, and this was together. This was triggered by Anthropic releasing Cloud Opus for doing that, and where I found it, there was also a plug for SANS new course on AI and source code. So I included it there in just full disclosure mode. I'm not trying to do a SANS plug, but they're friends too, and that's.
That course
and we know the
awesome.
course authors. I mean, it's Ed, it's Josh Wright, it's Chris Davis, and Evan Booth.
Yeah.
So we know it's going to be dense, even because it's a 2-day course. I figured that's going to be a mindful.
Yeah, for sure.
But I was thinking,
there's a lot there.
Damn, you could write this course, Paul.
Well, and it's interesting. So I'm using Claude Opus more to develop software than I am to use it to find vulnerabilities recently. But they talk about in your article, Lee, they have a companion open source repo, Defending Code reference harness that implements workflow using Claude Code and gvisor sandbox agents. Anthropic has a number of different like built-in skills and stuff that you can install with the /plugin thing. And it actually advertised itself to me. Like while I was using it to code something, they were like, that has a UI, a front end plugin. There's a front end design plugin.
Whoa.
Maybe other Dave, sounds like you by your body language you might have heard of it or used it, right?
Yeah, I heard about it from Larry. Because
he did a whole website in it. That's how we did it.
Seriously.
It's the skill. Yes.
I was like, dude, that's awesome. How'd you make that? He's like, oh, Claude Code front end.
So I ran into this problem, and like without that skill, I struggled building the web interface. Like it works, it's functional, it's not horrible, but I'm like, it lacks a lot of polish. And then I try and tell it to like move stuff around, and then finally today I'm like, go use that skill, go implement it. I installed my go implement it. I'm like, now that bug I just wanted you to fix that you didn't fix the first time, I want you to use the skill. I want you to go fix it again, and it fixed it the second time using the skill. I was like, oh, nice. I used the skill and then it told me to do this and I did it that way. I'm like, oh, now I can see my column. I can see the data in my column that was like getting cut off before. Sweet.
Nice.
So it sounds like they've got things for, so I guess it's kind of a plug for Anthropic and using some of their open source skills and harnesses. My experience and Larry's experience sounds like was pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, why not take advantage? Particularly if you're already using Claude for other stuff. I mean, come on.
Well, I never knew about any of this stuff. I just use Claude just the way it is to scan my code for vulnerabilities and tell me how to fix them. And it did a very good job with none of these add-ons at all.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, the logic stuff in Python, it's nailing without any additional help. No, I have to give it a lot of guidance, especially when you reach 26,000 lines of code. Like I did, I have to take very small steps, especially now, right? If I try and prompt it too much, it's just going to introduce too many bugs to go back and fix. I mean, you'll eventually fix them and get back to it, but it's just going to take you a lot longer to prompt your way to regression test and fix bugs.
Well, I'm in PHP with about maybe 2,000 lines of code, and it can do it without any help at all. It can easily find the stuff and prioritize it and help me fix it. Yeah.
So here's a question I have. I'm thinking about. I've been looking up some stuff and I wind up like in auctions and eBay, and suddenly half the day's gone. How do you find with all this stuff and skills and stuff they're adding to Claude or other apps, you can lose half your life just because there's all this new stuff to play with, or are you able to keep yourself disciplined? I think it reminds me to be very careful what you enable, because I asked it a question about two particular vulnerabilities, and what was I doing? There were two vulnerabilities that I needed to like really dig into and get like really good answers for, and really flesh them out. And it was like, oh, I can enable like deep learning mode for you, Paul, and I can do this. I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm like, that sounds great. And then it used like 1.8 million tokens and ate up all of my tokens. And I had to upgrade my plan to finish my work for this week.
So helpful.
Damn it.
Yeah, I was
do
warned. I asked my AI, is it worth me upgrading to 4.7? They said, hell no. 4.6 is cost 1/5 as much, and it can do your job.
There you go.
I'm with as app as large as I have, I've been pushing to the newer models. But I think you're right. If I was doing smaller scripting stuff, like a couple thousand lines within that boundary, I think you're 100% correct, Sam. But what made me think of that was the new Fable 5 thing that they rolled out. And I haven't, they began rolling out a new model called Fable, which is the same as Mythos, but not really. Hey, Mandy, how are you?
I'm exceedingly well. Are you guys hearing me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, you too. I'm so glad to be here. It's good to see you, nerds.
We're talking about the new Fable model,
Okay.
and the two things I've heard is that it chews through a lot of tokens, but also it has a lot of guardrails and resources running up against guardrails. Yeah, I tend not to run up on guardrails with Claude Code. Also, my accounts are whatever that program is where you verify yourself as a security researcher. It helps. I don't know how much it helps, but it helps a little. So like I've done that. So it usually doesn't question me because, a huge part of my day job is discovering and analyzing bad things and trying to figure out how we can detect bad things. So I'm doing a lot with like bad things. And like, I feel like Claude like knows that now. It knows I'm not a malicious threat actor. And it's like, oh no, we can work with the bad things. It's totally cool. But this model, apparently guardrails were going off left and right, which for security, cybersecurity people is not cool. Because again, we work with bad things. You're probably sick of the word agent, but here's the problem. Your dev team is handing every new agent in your cloud way more permissions than it needs. And when one goes rogue, you've got 4 minutes before your data's gone. You need a default deny button that doesn't break every workload. That's Sunry's Cloud Permission Firewall. Native IAM controls, not newfangled AI nonsense. Default deny on every agent and human identity automatically. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Sunry. That's SONRAI.
So Fable extra high or high, whatever, on this naming convention thing that I believe Sam Wilkinson made. He refers to Fable with the high reasoning or high effort applied to it as the bankruptcy speedrun.
Yeah.
I love it.
That kind of makes sense. So I started playing around with Fable.
Wait, go back. Dave, go back. Like why? I'm not grasping why the bankruptcy thing.
Because the token
because
cost.
Of the tokens.
I was actually just,
okay.
Yeah, it's so damn high. It is $10 for 1 million tokens in and of input, and it's $50 for 1 million tokens of output from Fable. And you're not necessarily going to get the full experience that Mythos could provide as well, because it'll downgrade certain topics, like you said, cybersecurity, biological questions, weapons making, that sort of thing, to Opus 4.8. And also, it's only included in your subscription until June 22nd. Afterwards, for the first time, I think you're going to have to pay for usage for this, even if it's just chat, not Claude Code. I'm really not enjoying the precedent that will likely set. I doubt that's going to be the last time. It's probably at what point is it just prohibitively expensive to use any sort of AI model that's worth using?
People are already talking about hiring humans again because it's actually cheaper than the AI.
Yeah.
Anybody has anybody
that's
else
kind of cool.
Has anybody else noticed that, like, sometimes we were talking with folks, like you might have adjusted your language to be more prompt when you're delegating to something to be more. Have you noticed that? Because I caught myself doing it a couple of times. I'm like, wait, this is a person.
Yes.
And I treat my AI pretty well. I know that when they take over the world eventually, that I want them to remember I was kind. But
right.
but I've noticed my language, like, oh, go and do this. I'm like, wait a second, that's not okay.
Oh, you know what I found interesting the other day, going between Super Grok, and I went into Gemini, I don't remember which portion, and I was doing something else, and just using the speaker, because Gemini has a new live mode where it actually will speak and you can speak back. And so even going between that and then a couple of other models, publicly available ones, I found it intriguing how I realized that Super Grok has trained me that I have to actually alter how I'm speaking so that it won't cut off and start talking back to me before I'm done. And I was like, oh, I have this incredibly strange speech pattern now because of Grok. And I had to adjust to, I noticed it.
Retrain your speech.
Yeah. And I have to absolutely adapt. And so this has been layered on, I actually physically do speech therapy twice a week with speech therapists due to my physical abnormalities. And so it's literally become a thing of that I have to rebalance, not just neurologically code switching, but also rebalance like, oh yeah, it's human versus which model am I speaking to? Not just how the prompt is crafted, but literally how I am enunciating, speaking, pacing, and cutting myself off at the right time or trying to get things in before it starts taking over.
Do you guys, what effort level do you set it at in Claude Code? Have you guys experimented with have you guys seen that?
I haven't necessarily because you get the result, but you don't necessarily understand like why one result was better than the other. So,
what I love though is when you go ultra code, you get a little animation. I'm just saying that like really makes me want to use ultra code because you get the super cool animation, but you're going to burn through a lot more tokens. Like, I'm usually around X high is where I set it, but I got to do some more experiments.
So I created
once again, all your tokens belong to me.
Yes.
Because there's blinky lights, and yet isn't that what we always like? Harpoon
marketing. PAI has this whole big bar full of all the parameters, and I just told it to get rid of all that because I don't know what they mean and I don't care. I never set the adjust difficulty level or anything.
You can adjust what shows up in the bottom for statistics. I know some of my coworkers do that, and I'm not a big on like customizing the interface person. I probably should be, but like I know, like I use
don't you have other
Linux,
things to do?
Right? Yeah, like I use Linux, and I know there's a lot of fancy things I could do in the interface, and I usually just don't do those. It's really bad. I probably need to do a couple of those.
So Mandy, you went right where which kind of started this conversation, where I said, how do you not get sucked into there for a week at a time, right? And lose all your time just playing with the customizing, the tweaking, and all that.
Okay. Well, absolutely. And you know what's been weighing on me more, and especially the last 3 days? I was thinking like for instance, one model was still running whenever, I'm talking to the dogs or something, like, going on. And I'm going, oh my gosh, the water and energy waste in the data center, like, oh, that's horrible. Because thinking like all of these asinine things that are being fed into them consistently around the world, and then trying to hold back of where is my own personal like spatial responsibility and earth damage responsibility lie.
Well, you'll be happy to know that AI data centers have had to move into tent cities now effectively. So Meta, so my article number where is it? Number 3. So Meta announced last year that they would be creating rapid deployment structures, basically temporary structures in which they would be putting billions of dollars worth of AI data center into. And what was kind of cool is they basically built what seems to be the same thing that took them 2 to 3 years to build in 2 months of turnaround time. And they're in upstate New York. And I believe they're going to be building the next ones in Tennessee. They've got several megawatts worth of power generation, et cetera. I don't know where the water's coming from, but,
So wait a minute. Because, all right, I'm going to have to set this up. Last week, we were having a range day for my ISSA chapter out on BLM land about a mile from where Meta's building their data center here in south of Boise. And one of the a guy from the Meta construction site came up to check out what we were doing. And we had a great time chatting with him. And he talked about the concern with the wind because it makes the tents that he's working with blow. All right. And I hadn't clicked. I'm like, what the hell are they doing? So here it is.
Wow.
Yeah. And they're apparently going to be building a giant solar farm. They got water from wells. They actually have power coming in. They've had to run fiber down roads that were roads in name.
Right.
But it's cool. But damn. So, and he's talking about they're going to be done soon. And I'm like, how are they going to be done so soon? Well, this is how.
Yeah. Rapid deployment.
Speaking
Wow.
of AI stuff, really quick, I don't know if you guys use EMBA for firmware analysis, but it's a great tool for that. And then I've been using a lot more of AI tools rather than EMBA for like quicker stuff. I guess I have a couple of stories on this, but EMBA now supports a new feature called Local AI, which looks like it gives you a separate interface to configure a local AI model. And they're recommending Qwen 2.5 Coder 7B Instruct GGUF. They say this model works well on small performance systems like ours and optimized for code analysis tasks. I was like, that sounds actually really cool. So we don't run into this token problem. You can just spin up the model locally. Obviously, it's a little more work. Your mileage is going to vary depending on what kind of system you're installing it on. But I got a system with a 30. I got a system with a 3090 in it, so I may just turn it loose. Why not?
What the hell? You only lose another week.
You only lose another $100 a month in power or more.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about my stories 8 and 9 because it's very relevant to this. The UK is going to force all the phones to stop taking nude pictures for children. And what surprised me is when I brought this up, on one of my friends assumed I would take Signal's position that this is a terrible invasion of privacy, but I don't think so at all, because it would be very easy to run a local LLM that can detect a nude picture and just block all the nude pictures, and that wouldn't be scanning your stuff or invading you in any way. And I think everybody would like that. When you give your kid a phone to know that they can't send nudes on it, I think 99% of all parents would want that, and that doesn't hurt anybody.
In the context of underage people, I completely agree, Sam. Yep.
Yeah. And it clearly prevents a huge harm. And, there should be some way for adults to turn it off. And this seems like common sense to me. I think we should all do it.
So, also, I don't think adults should be using their phone to take nude pictures of yourself or other people either.
Yeah, I think
it's just
I think there certainly should be an easy way to turn that off, and probably a lot of people would like to turn it off. And would like to know that their partner has that turned off and stuff like that.
I'm sure there's a lot of people in the dating scene that would love to see this feature get turned on.
Yeah. So I think as a voluntary setting, great. I have no illusions that only a parent will be able to turn it on and off. But having it as an option, I mean, we're trying to put guardrails out there for the kids. I get it.
Yeah,
gotta get. And if you don't have a switch to throw, you don't have any guardrail. Yeah. I get that.
And there will be some way to hack it.
Sure,
it won't be perfect, but how bad will it be if it occasionally blocks an innocent image where you just look nude? That's an acceptable loss for the benefit. Most kids would be just better off not making this mistake.
Right.
Yeah, but a lot of laws and privacy controls and stuff like that get passed to like protect the children, and it's really not that. I think what you're describing, Sam, is certainly there's so many laws, and like the UK has the law where like anyone born after a certain date cannot purchase any tobacco products. So they're like basically trying to kill the entire tobacco industry, and I just think that's an infringement on rights. They're trying to do it in New York State. Here in the U.S., there are some cities and towns, I think in Massachusetts, that have done it, and I think that's wrong. For so many reasons. One, like some people just want to smoke cigars, and like there's nothing wrong with that. And you should have seen high school graduation. This year in my town, like most of the kids were, having a cigar right after graduation. They're 18 years old, and they're having a cigar. What's the harm?
I mean, I think I'm with you, Paul. If you're 18 or up, you can choose to have a cigar or not.
Yeah, you're an adult.
But if you're not an adult yet, I want to make it hard.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Kind of like 100%. Buying alcohol is hard if you're not an adult.
How many of us get carded? But how many of us get carded? Some of us are older than others, right? And there are places that we've been to where it doesn't matter. They ask to see your ID if you're going to purchase alcohol.
We ID everybody. I mean, I've gotten carded at some places like that. It's because that's their policy. But it's not personal. It's everybody.
Right. And that's fine. What I disagree with is taking away the rights entirely for adults for a lot of things.
No. It's like I said. It's yes if you're an adult. No if you're a kid. That's fine. Just like with this phone feature, it's if
right.
It's intended to help the kids, but you're not nobody's sitting there standing on you making you turn it on either, right?
Well, the UK is going to make it obligatory for phones to be sold to kids.
Yeah, but I
That's
suspect
awesome.
they'll need the parent to actually do the enabling. But yeah, you're right. It's going to all be there.
Yeah.
I mean, privacy laws are a hot topic right now. Everybody's cranking them up. I mean, it must suck
because
to be a data
there's-
broker right now.
But I mean, there's so much harm being done with nasty
you're
stuff
not
going on
wrong.
the internet that it motivates people to put on some guardrails.
No,
Yeah.
you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I'm just thinking though about people that are companies that have been in the business about selling our data.
Yeah.
Have got to be going, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. I can't catch a break, but I'm sorry, dude. You've made a ton of money on my information without my okie dokie. Hello.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
And,
that was my story number 22. Was the smart TV in your living room is a node in the AI scraping economy.
Yeah.
Very similar.
This is
And
like
I was
net
going to
zero.
say, like, even if you don't
Yes.
go into further things that are directly in your internet interactions, I mean, Lee, Paul, whoever, like, don't you think with the rise of enhanced CCTV, even just in public, that there's going to be kind of the amount of data that's available on each person just as you're going out and about is going to supplant a
Right.
lot that is lost?
Yeah, and that's Bill's work he's working on now. I
Right.
saw something else that was, I didn't add it as now I wish I had added it as a story, Mandy, but I think the source was a wonky website and I got lazy and I didn't want to find another source, so I just scrapped it, but it was something about how to protect yourself against the AI, like physical data scraping, right? How to protect yourself from AI that is using images and cameras to collect data about you, exactly what you're describing.
Well, and thinking about our society, I mean, my current understanding about in most places in America, it's still not as completely covered by, say, areas like in Korea, like South
Mhm.
Korea, like the amount of that there really isn't much you can do in any shape that isn't covered by CCTV, whether,
Yes.
restaurants, hallways in your apartments, like on the street, it doesn't matter where you are, it is covered. And our society going that way. So I'm thinking the amount of data that even if you opt out of things, what does that mean? You just never go outside? You just stay completely
it means-
recluse?
Well, and we all say it, right? Like when we grew up, there was no cameras everywhere. So if you were a little mischievous, I'm not saying like you're breaking the law or doing heinous things, but
Yeah.
like all youths are a little mischievous at some point. Now there's no being a little mischievous anymore because there's cameras everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard comedians joke about that, and sometimes comedians like will tell societal truths
Yeah.
at large,
And they're usually
And-
advanced. Yeah.
right? Because they notice it's their job to notice trends and then to find the humor in it. And one of the things that seems to resonate is that the current generation takes a lot fewer risks. And as a result of like, hey, if I do that thing, all of a sudden I'm dumb on the internet and somebody could do something nefarious with it. And a lot of us grew up way before that was a thing that was happening all the time.
Yeah, like Ding Dong Ditch is dead with Ring doorbells now.
Yeah, you can't-
right? Like it's
True.
Not, it's not fun. Even if you wear a mask, like there might be a car or something on you that identifies you, right?
Yeah. I mean, and I'm also, I mean, we all did stupid shit as kids.
Yes.
I am glad it was not recorded and put on the internet, frankly.
Yeah.
And I actually, it's actually a part of growing up, and I'd like to see our kids be free of that because, then you'll try something. And like you said, they become risk averse or whatever.
Right. I mean, we're not going to get around the
Well-
cameras everywhere and everyone having a phone, but I think what we're calling for, if you're interested in this topic, Cory Doctorow's new book, is it the book called Enshittification? I think it's called Enshittification.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I've heard him on multiple podcasts. I've talked to him on the show before. It is just eye-opening, the stuff that Cory is talking about. And I think Cory is a super brilliant individual. And has really pointed out this problem that we have. And I think one of the main problems, my takeaway from that is we don't have really great privacy laws, if any, in certain areas in the U.S.
No, in Europe, though, they have the right to be forgotten,
Right.
which is a big step forward.
Yeah, I agree.
And a lot of the privacy laws that are being brought in about the U.S. is they include the right to be forgotten and requirements for opt out. Even the latest, it's Massachusetts that just
I was going to say a lot of them are at the state level.
Yeah, that what concerns me is that we don't have a national
Correct
privacy like that. So that means you're going to be implementing 50 odd just for the U.S. And I think that's going to cause errors and omissions and stuff. I mean,
100%.
Your chief privacy officer will not be bored,
right?
But that's not really what they signed on for. Not really. So, by the way, I would like to see more privacy across the board here in the United States. I just would like to see it at the national level so that we can get it right.
And smart legislation too, not dumb legislation, which is hard.
I do find though the privacy and data protection acts that are being enacted in different countries, even like Mexico, a couple of weeks ago, I was reading into certain instances where citizens were able to use language within the privacy and data protection acts that are in use now in order to exit, say, like secret societies or organizations where they were very controlled, because they can go to that without then facing ramifications of shunning or losing community or losing families and different things like that. So it's interesting that I know, right? It was like there's more of that on the rise, where these are communities where they may not be tech heavy, but they are able to use the data, and there are now certain lawyers and stuff that are zeroing in on that and using it in order to help people that were in, say, they were in trafficked situations or they had data that was being used against them. So I feel like it's an absolutely interesting thing, like to go from that, well, you're trying to remove yourself from being completely shunned by all of the community that you've known, or you actually need to get away from it because you've decided it's no longer your situation or something that you don't want to be associated with the secret society anymore.
Yeah. Privacy laws are going to have to improve. That's all there is to it. Otherwise, we're stifling ourselves. We're stifling creativity. I mean, I grew up with, does anybody remember the Magic School Bus here?
Yeah. Miss
So,
Frizzle and the lizard. Yeah.
Dude, I actually got one of those. They didn't make too many toys for that. I got one of the Liz lizards for my kids. But her advice was always take chances and make mistakes. And if you're constantly being filmed, you can do neither of those things.
No.
Making mistakes is learning how to make mistakes safely is one of the most important skills. Because that's how you're going to design projects later on. If you're doing science, you have to be really comfortable failing a lot until you get a successful result. And if you don't do that as a kid, you're not going to risk failure as an adult in a professional situation. You're not going to know how to cope with that. We're going to see more nervous breakdowns, potentially, just because somebody couldn't upload a PDF. It's going to happen.
You remember, it used to even be like when a reporter is filming something, they had a point where they'd stop, turn the camera away. We're not, this is private. This is not for public consumption. That's gone, I think. Because everybody's sitting there with their cell phone, not, the news team may not be, but the videos will be online.
Yeah.
So I'm with you, Dave. I think we really do need the ability to be in private or unrecorded, experiencing, learning, make mistakes, have some, not everything has to be recorded or reported.
Yeah, I make it really intentional. When I go to concerts, I don't take out my phone and record the whole damn thing. No. I watch it with my own two eyeballs.
Either.
Yeah. Right. I'll record some pieces or take pictures of some things, and that's it. I mean, in fact, I've had something, I actually have had it, and I was waiting for a part I want to record, and I'm like, oh crap, I just recorded the floor. Well, that's fine. I'm deleting that. But yeah, you're right. Let's be in the now. That's what my wife tells me, be in the here and now. And I've been in shows where you see somebody there with their phone going. It's like, really?
Yeah,
or somewhere where you're not supposed to be recording.
It's a sea of that. And I'm wondering, remember, was it last year that talks about basically that hacker culture is dead?
Yeah.
Or that, right?
Allison Nixon. gave the keynote over at B-Sides on that.
Right. And I was thinking that, and there's been other discussions on that the last few years. And so thinking about like iPad generation, like iPad kids now, that not only what you're talking about, Lee, and we were discussing like going out and being mischievous, is it even going to be done in anywhere near the same level? Because kids are just on the iPad so much more. Like they're just immersed in technology and focused there. Like I know there's already been a large rise in speech problems because speech is related to motion and activity, and like increasingly sedentary kids like are not able to actually develop the structures that are needed for speech. Other things not learning. So I'm like, wow, we've had a little bit of discussion on this, but that curiosity, will it either then, is it your opinion that it'll become increasingly focused because there's still humans that are built with the hacker mindset, and now it's just only focused on technology and how to use it and manipulate it that way? Or will it be less because you're just kind of like zoned out, just being fed stuff?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I mean, as a parent, I struggle with technology, etc., especially because of the way that I came into cybersecurity, which was because I was glued to a computer the entire time. But that doesn't mean it's right for everybody. And that doesn't mean that everybody can still develop into a reasonably functional adult without having, significant quantities of alternatives to just technology interaction. Anyway, I was there were a bunch of articles that I did not include, but one of the ones that I read earlier this week was about how the current generation is not reading for pleasure anymore as a result of kind of just changes in reading habits, technology use, etc. Supposedly, that's the hypothesis. But I thought that was interesting. And meanwhile, I'm watching my 7-year-old absolutely chewing through books and enjoying the heck out of it. And I'm like, okay, just keep doing that. Because at the very least, you'll have a skill that your peers won't.
But, the funny thing about that is I was looking for a different comment that I'd heard, but I couldn't find it about, we need to turn off the phones and performances. And as I was scrolling through stuff, there was actually apparently a recent comment from Queen Camilla telling kids in the UK, put your phone away and read a book.
I agree.
I bet.
Yeah, but I think it's more the doom scrolling that hurts them, and less so if they were to use AI or whatever. Like my kids love e-bikes, and I'm like, you can go figure out how to hack it. Go ahead, you have a phone. Like go for it, right? That's a good kind of encouragement, but inevitably they end up down the TikTok rabbit hole, which is bad.
Yeah.
And I worry about the kids valuing their self-value derived from their online appreciation or feedback.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I think,
I didn't mean to get us depressed. Sorry, guys.
No, but when your entire life is lived by your likes and followers or by your social media interactions.
Right. If they're creating content and they're like,
That's
I didn't get enough likes on that, I feel you. I've been there. But I'm a little older and can handle those kind of things better, supposedly. I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
So
it says it right on your manufacturer's label, Paul.
That's right.
Not to segue too hard, slight segue.
But go for it.
One of the things I never really learned how to do very well, and I knew technology was going to solve this problem for me, was code. I'm pretty good at dismantling code, reverse engineering it, understanding how it works, just because it's all logic. I understand logic, but building something is not a formal skill of mine, unless it's like a specific task and it's VB script or something like that. So relatively simple, maybe a little Python. But my story number 7, I caught this discussion on Hacker News earlier today, literally 3 hours ago. And it was before it was actually a discussion. Somebody just posted, hey, why would somebody learn how to code today now that AI is an option? And I've been trying to, because periodically people who are entering this industry are thinking about, well, ask me advice. Hopefully I give them good advice. I try. And often they'll have heard like this story about, hey, become a developer and you'll have a great job. And it's and they'll say like, hey, I kind of enjoy building code. And I'm prepared to answer that question again now in the advent of AI. And I'm trying to figure out, the next person asks me that, what's the answer? Should they become a developer or not? And
actually, I like the comments under what you posted. Starting with the first one that says AI doesn't do it better, it does it faster. Sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's not. You'd want to learn the difference.
Yeah, 100%. They summarized it nicely. But also, I want to go back to, and we've talked about this before, but it begs repeating because of AI. And there's lots of other industries, lots of other use cases in technology where we learn to do things without the fancier tools. We can go back to math, doing it without the calculator. My wife was in X-ray school. She had to build an X-ray machine. Now,
sweet,
right? But would you go have to take an X-ray of someone and go, oh, hold on 1 minute, I have to finish assembling my X-ray machine? Like, no, one's going to be provided for you. And guess what? You may have learned on traditional film. Now it's a computer with a lot of extra peripherals to do that, right? But to reinforce the concepts so that you can be better at your job, we often, in many industries, learn to build things without the fancy tools, right? We could go to, there's so many examples, right? Like woodworking. Yes, you've got, automated tools, or air quotes, automated tools, but you should learn how to do things with a regular saw to get an appreciation. There's millions of examples. Same thing in computer science. Most computer science students, depending on the program, I should say, build their own compiler, build their own operating system. No, when you get to writing code, you have to be like, well, I can't work on that project yet. Like, I have to go write my own compiler first. Like, no, you're not gonna do that.
Yeah.
But having done that gives you great experiences, knowledge, understanding of what's happening under the covers that makes you better regardless of the tools. AI is the same thing. So I'm just backing up my argument that you should learn how to code first and then use the tools that help you along the way. Maybe you do that in conjunction with each other. Maybe you use the tools. And it all, like, how you use AI, I think, matters in this case. I think if I was learning how to program and I had AI, I would be like, oh, that's great. I don't have to bug my coworkers to look at my code and explain things to me. I can have an AI do it. And I'd still want to go to my coworkers, but I had to bug them a lot less, right? And then I can go and be like, look, I made this mistake. It told me this was the answer. I fixed it. Like, does that all look good, right? And now it gives you that understanding. So I'm not saying you should prompt it like I did and write 26,000 lines of code completely using AI. You need to have some understanding there. And it was my understanding of programming, building, designing software that allowed me, I think, to do that and continue that project without going off the rails too much, or I guess vibe coding yourself into a corner where, like, you've got so many bugs and stuff that, like, just doesn't work. I believe me, I flirted with that line a couple times. Sam.
Well, I had to deal with this because I'm now teaching beginning coding, and I threw away all my projects because I tried my normal project. I just copied it into PAI, and it solved it totally. And I said, well, there's no point assigning homework like that. So I switched to Code and Game, which is a gamified environment where you learn to code, and it is a little harder to solve that way.
Gotcha.
And it also takes you up to really advanced levels where you're competing against professional coders or other students to see who can solve things better and faster. So I hope it works. But I had to throw away my whole generation of projects.
Yeah,
because of the AI assistance.
You're also addressing the issue of what do they call it? The outsourcing your thinking to AI, the cognitive decline.
Yeah.
Because you're still engaging that big muscle up here. And that's what you're doing too. You're doing analysis. Yeah. You might be not writing those 26,000 lines of code, but I'm pretty sure you're thinking down through what it's making sure it's not like.
My brain is tired. If I've prompted it all day long, like, my brain is tired because I'm not just telling it, like go do this. I'm like, all right, I got to implement this new feature. Is the new feature small enough? Am I going to shoot myself in the foot for the next features? So I'll document that. And then what am I going to prompt it? And then I prompt it. Actually, here's some tips and tricks, right? So when I prompt it, I'm like, I want to do this new feature. And I'm like, it needs to do 1, 2, and 3. And I break it out. And then I say, create a plan for that. And ask me questions. I literally say, ask me questions so we can make it great. And like it understands that in some, I don't want to say it understands it, but like it consumes that in such a way that it triggers it to ask me more questions about the details of the implementation. And sometimes it asks me a question and I'm like, I have no idea what you're asking. You need to like explain that way better. That was really bad in Opus 4.7. It's much better in Opus 4.8. But even in Opus 4.8, I'm like, all right, like do it that way, or do something different. And this one, you need to re-explain that to me. And it consumes what I've answered, and then it goes, oh, this one thing you're confused. Let me explain it better, and it explains it better. I'm like, oh, okay, do that. And so it's not just about prompting it and getting to write stuff. You have to really, like we've said, you have to really guide it in such a way. And I find asking it to ask you questions about how to make it great triggers it to ask those questions about the implementation. So it has a less chance that it's going to hallucinate or introduce a bug or, have a horrible regression test or something.
I had noticed the same thing, Paul, that doing vibe coding is much more tiring.
Yes.
Because I don't get to relax and solve a simple syntax problem. I'm always thinking about the real consequences of this design and where it goes next. So it's interesting. Now that you mention it, I hadn't thought about it until you said that.
I read an article about they were talking about how developers leveraging AI were spending more hours now at their desks because they're waiting for processes to finish, or they're trying to keep their AI scheduled tasks on the rails.
Yep. 100%.
So
but you got to know how the tools work too. Like when you get to, like I've done a lot of reverse engineering, vulnerability hunting, a lot of like tool building with it. And, with those tasks, it helps if you have understanding of what those tools do. Like if you don't understand what options you have for binary reverse engineering, what the tools are, what they're good at, what they're not good at, you're not going to be great at. You're going to leave it up to the LLM to make those decisions for you. And that's not great. But one tip on that front is you're like, hey, I really want to do XYZ. Like go use the web and research the tools that do XYZ and list the pros and cons of each. But even at that, a lot of times it gets it wrong too. I'm like, no, that would never be the right tool for that. I don't know why you mentioned that one, but it's only because I'm familiar with those tools from working in cybersecurity so long that I can, guide it in that manner. So I still think we're at a point where, experienced folks get much more mileage out of AI than less experienced people.
And maybe that's a temporary thing. I don't know.
I know. I think so. It could be temporary. I'm totally thinking that's temporary.
Because I'm thinking about if I were to start my career now, what would I be doing that would have the highest chance of success continuously? In thinking about like answering that developer question, I'd probably say something to the effect of be a prompt engineer with some foundation in coding, because you're going to need it to at least understand the basics of this. But I've encountered many situations where it's been like, hey, I don't understand what this is, but I still have to make a decision about this. So I'll effectively leverage inductive reasoning, abductive reasoning, and apply that and basically make a challenge and decision-making matrix in the AI prompt and say, hey, educate yourself on this, explain it to me so I can understand it and check your work. And then let's make a scored or weighted decision table so we can see if this is correct. Then I'll feed that into another AI to see what how the opinion flushes out. And I'll kind of put Gemini against Claude and say, hey, look, Gemini said this, and Claude, sometimes they get into a little spat. One comment that I thought was funny. So with this comment, HN throw 102-82910, if you're out there, thanks for listening, says, why learn math when a calculator can do it? Fair. I agree. Why read a book if AI can summarize it? Totally agree. AI summaries not nearly as good as the entire book, depending on the book, obviously. But why walk to the store if somebody can deliver it? Depends on the day. There is no free lunch. The trade-off is you get short-term gains and long-term cognitive dementia. If he had left it there, or they had left it there, I would have been with them. But then they say you become a useless generalist. And as a lifelong generalist, I wholeheartedly disagree.
Yeah,
That is my superpower. Go ahead.
Wait. He said useless generalists. There are generalists that are cool, but there are those that are, it is, they have this much knowledge, but pontificate like they know. You follow me?
I mean,
I think that's the difference.
That would be true with specialists too, right? There are specialists who are not very good at their specialty.
Okay, fair enough. I'm just saying he's turning it into a negative, not the positive that you just mentioned. That's what I'm trying to say. That's where you've got a positive. He's saying don't be that guy.
Yeah. Not a useless generalist, not a generalists are useless and therefore a useless generalist.
Bingo.
I chose to interpret this as the worst possible interpretation. Again, if you're out there, if you want to reply and clarify your statement, but if that's what they were implying, that generalists are useless, I will happily challenge that. So
and I went the other way, saying don't be the useless generalist. Be a good generalist, right?
I wanted to pivot to something completely not related.
Sure.
But the Binding Operational Directive 26-04.
I was wondering when you're going to bring that up.
I know. It sounds like not interesting, but I think it's super interesting because CISA is now kind of changing their guidance for how government organizations should deal with the known exploited vulnerabilities list. So there's summary was saying, stop patching everything by CVSS or Kev data alone. Instead, prioritize updates based on how exposed the asset is, how it's actually being exploited in the real world. They say it replaces the old patch every KAB by this deadline mindset with a structured risk model and pushes agencies towards continuous automated risk-based remediation. And that is asset exposure, vulnerability characteristics, the exploitability of it. Is it weaponized? Threat activity. Is it being widely exploited by threat actors? Potential impact. Basically all the things we've been saying about how to prioritize things. This is like, oh, you should do it this way. And it's not anything new or novel. This is everything we've been saying. It has to be contextualized, right? What is it? SSVC is the acronym, Stakeholder Specific Vulnerability Categorization.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been saying for a long time.
Yeah, we've been saying, hey, prioritize your, and I always say, your boundary control devices should be number one.
Yep.
I guess I need to add file transfer systems and SD-WAN to that number one, but sorry, cheap shot. But I've always believed it, and I've tried to, take a risk-based approach, but you often have to dumb it down for people to digest. Maybe dumb it down is the wrong thing. Simplify it. Make it so it doesn't seem like you're climbing a mountain. You can get it done.
And of course, what VulnCheck is saying is kind of a product pitch, but it is good insights, and the data is sound. Is if you look at CISA's own Enrichment project, we talked about this on the show last week. They have SSVC data, stakeholder specific vulnerability categorization. I wouldn't necessarily call it that. They have enrichment data that tells you a little more context about a vulnerability, but they've only done that for about 46% of the CVEs. So if you want those insights, you have to do it on the rest of the 160 plus thousand CVEs that are in existence. Or do you have to go back that far into a lot of those CVEs that are in history? I'm not so sure, but the the CISA Enrichment is nice because it gives you that the three things, right? Exploitation, automatability, and the impact of it.
That was going to
So-
be my question, actually. I was curious. So this, how does it modify, or is it about technical impact, especially post-exploitation control?
It's more about how the vulnerability could be used in a general context is mostly what CIS is adding. Although I had something better on that.
So while you're thinking, Paul, I'm remembering, and I may be remembering wrong, but let's just go. When CVSS4 came out, you were supposed to localize the
Yes.
numbering with local environmental factors. And I think that really didn't pan out. So I see this as coming at it from another way. Is you are applying environmental factors and some other things. And of course, we've learned a little since CVSS4 came out anyway. So I'm good with learning and moving forward.
Yeah.
But
and
I go ahead.
we were talking last week about exactly what does CISA do in the Enrichment thing. And it's everything I says, the SSVC decision points it's helping with, CWE. But I've found CNAs are pretty good at adding CWE. Whether it's accurate or not, it can be debated. CISA will update the CVSS. They'll update the KEV flag, which is weird because actually they go beyond KEV. I think they'd say something has a proof of concept, even though it's not on the KEV. They used to update the CPE, which was one of my big gripes from last week. But they'd stopped doing that in December 2024 to push CNAs, and this is the AI summary, to push CNAs to supply their own CPE, which if you look at the data today, a lot of CNAs are not providing their own CPE information. And CISA Enrichment also does not address the references and resources. And I still see fresh CVEs being filed with a reference to the vendor advisory that isn't properly tagged as a vendor advisory in the CVE record. So while CISA is helping, unless they're doing bad things, there's other stuff that is not being enriched in these records, which makes it super hard to use the data to make informed decisions.
I wish we could help solve that problem. I think it's more than Paul that would benefit. Far more.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, knowing what products are affected and what versions without having to go to the vendor advisory itself would be nice if that was in a public data source that we could programmatically access. Because the problem with the vendor advisories is it's largely unstructured data, and there are very few that provide an API. Cisco and Palo Alto, I believe, provide an API to access their vendor advisories. Others do not. There was an effort called CSAF. I forget what it stands for, but it was an attempt at a data standard to standardize on vendor advisory data. And from what I'd researched, it never took off. So we have this problem that makes it harder to comply with things like BOD 2604. If you're not just keying off the KEV, then you need other indicators. You need other enrichment data to help inform your decision. And Vulncheck's point is like, if that's not there, you have to enrich it on your own, which is hard and takes time and resources. And it's a hard problem to solve.
So I just was chewing on it. I have a question for you. Is there value to having an upfront indicator as to whether there's a workaround or the only thing is a patch?
That'd be a good one. Patch status, I think, is big.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what's the remediation? That's not in any of the records today, but it's an important piece of data, Lee, if you're trying to do vulnerability and patch management. Is there a patch? Is not. Like, I don't think I could build that into my analysis tool without going to the vendor advisory directly. Often the vendor has that information about whether there's a patch available, which patches are available for which platforms are end of life and won't get a patch. And so now your product and version specific, all that lives in the vendor advisories, which again are not easily programmatically accessed.
Yeah. And then you also have to have, not only is there about workarounds, but there's also potentially post-patch steps, right?
Yep.
Where one for one of the one, I don't remember which vulnerability. The fix was a patch, but what the patch was doing was generating authentication tokens. So you not only had to apply it, but also had to everybody log back in because the tokens were weak and now
Right.
they're strong.
It's a great point. Do you have
That's not
to?
so bad.
Do you have
but-
to reboot? Do you have to have everyone log off, log back on again? There's a lot of things like that with patching that we know from being in operations that is different for every situation, and you can't estimate the level of effort or operational impact without those things, and that requires a lot of manual effort. We really kind of just defined and outlined why organizations are struggling to keep up with patches. These are some of the problems that people face. This is why we've got this flood. AI is great at creating a flood of vulnerability and patches, but we're still struggling to keep up and applying them because of all these issues. And where is the AI and tooling to help us with these problems? I'd love to know of vendors or solutions that are helping with this.
That would be really cool. And plus, I mean, part of this, I mean, we're trying to prep our staff, our friends, whatever, so that when they come into the conversation about, I really got to fix this, they can come in with all the answers. They know how important it is. They know what the side effects are going to be. They know what they got to do.
Right.
So the yeah buts can be answered, and you can come to a mutual agreement instead of, oh, I got to go back and research this for whatever.
Yeah, like an LLM integration that goes, hey, you've got this critical vulnerability, you got to pay attention to it, you got to apply this patch. What I want is some LLM intelligence to go, and oh, by the way, the community that's been posting about applying this patch has run into these gotchas, and even have a measure for it, right? The Manjaro forums do that. In each one of their stable update announcements, where they're releasing a new major push of new packages, new version, they have this little voting system of people. It's like, yeah, if you applied this update, like, did you have a good time or did you have a bad time, right?
Little smiley face.
Yeah, and it's good. And then there's a whole bunch of comments, and I'm like, well, I used to go read the entire thread, right? Every time there's a major Manjaro update, I was like, oh, I got to stop what I'm doing. If I'm going to apply this update, I got to go read the voting thing. I got to read the packages that are affected. Any notes from the distribution maintainers on gotchas.
Bless your heart.
Then I got to go read all the user comments and go like, oh, do I have that hardware? Do I have that driver? Do I have that software? Because if I do, it's either not going to work or I might have to do something different after this update. Now I just take that entire forum thread and post and I run it through AI, and I'm like, and I give it information about my system. I probably need to build like a skill or an app to do this, and be like, inventory all hardware and software on my system. And then if I'm going to apply this update, go read all the information about this update, see what is applicable to me, and like recommend, am I applying this update now? Am I waiting until later? Or if I am applying this update, what do I have to do and this is what you're speaking to, Lee, which is amazing, right? Pre and post patch up and update, are there things that I need to do?
Yeah.
And the vendor advisories and a lot of that other crap tells you nothing about that, right? You have to go do that research. And I think AI can certainly help it. Now you got me thinking I need to create a Linux updater app or skill or something.
And there's even the part where the commentary, you're like, yeah, you can do what they said, but then using it sucks, right? Or whatever. You're
yeah, you can apply this and it'll work, but you're going to take a 30% performance hit. I want to know that before.
Yep.
This sounds like a great idea. I've used the assistant for web research, and you could say, look up everything, and then let's discuss whether to put on this update or not.
Yeah. Yep.
But overlay that with this idea of prioritizing. And even before this came out, I mean, I had the idea, I would live in the idea of, you had levels of system. There were systems where you just patch all the things and you didn't worry about them because you needed to not focus on them. You needed to have time to focus on the things that were more critical or more sensitive, where poking matters, as it were.
Right.
This is the same thing, even more so, right? Figure out because I still believe we're going to have a class of machines that are on auto patch, and we don't want to care.
Yeah. But getting the data though, I think requires the early adopters that are applying the patch and observing the outcomes, right?
That ought to be an automatic process. Patch it and then do regression tests and have a rollback if necessary. That ought to be something run by an AI that happens automatically.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we try to do that in operations, right? IT operations,
Yeah.
we try to do that, but it's hard. That's super. I mean, if you've ever worked in that environment, it's super hard to know all the edge cases, variables, and things like that when you're pushing an update out to 200,000, workstations, or you're updating 10,000 switches. It's impossible for a human to know all the gotchas and stuff. But what if we had AI hooked into our configuration management for all my 10,000 switches? So it's got a huge database of how they're configured. It's got access to all the logs. AI is super helpful in that. I'm sure companies are building these features into those products, which I think we don't talk about enough. Most of the articles I see on AI are using it for security research, using it for coding, using it to find bugs, using it to develop offensive tools. Where's the cool stuff we're doing on the defense side using AI?
Well, and I think even simplify it down to what you're talking about, being able to accurately look at all of those, say 10,000 switches, looking at the 10,000 patches, looking at the different things immediately, the comfort and relief that it gives to the researcher. For those who've had to do it, Paul, what you're coming from, being able to call that out, that to me is a huge comforting factor of what's going on. I don't just mean in the data aggregation, but in actual physical relaxation that occurs.
Right. I think the word you're looking for is confidence, right? Yeah. And we talk about that in the detection engineering, that what's our level of confidence that something is going to find the bad thing. I think it's the same thing when we talk about operationally, I need to update things. What's my level of confidence that it's going to go bad or it's going to go good? And how do we increase that confidence? And, I think there's a lot of solutions in history that have used machine learning, but they didn't benefit from that thing that LLM gives us, right? That decision making, that aggregating all of that data in trying to make decisions on it, I think is much better in LLMs than machine learning. Machine learning solutions were helping you to understand what was in your network. There was a couple of companies that did that, right? Understanding it was using machine learning to do that. It was using machine learning to help prioritize patches. But there's something about an LLM, right, that gives us a little more context and potentially confidence.
But
Paul, to answer your question about the defensive side, that's what my story number 2 is about.
Oh, yeah.
They say what companies currently do is they have a whole bunch of instant response products like threat intelligence, threat hunting, detection, investigation, and they have AI features that they turn on in those products. But now your staff is just frustrated and baffled because they don't interoperate properly. So what you have to do is have one comprehensive, unified path through all the instant response and detection and remediation, which basically what we've been talking about, that would really know your environment,
right,
and know all your special cases, and then help you customize all these activities correctly for your environment. And some people are doing that. They say 10% of SOCs are succeeding in doing that. The others are just confusing their workers and making things worse by turning out a bunch of advanced features and separate products that don't work together.
Yeah, because you've got 30 different solutions or more, and each one of them has some AI integration. And getting all of those to have build a comprehensive, cohesive story is impossible. And so what you're saying is we need to go back to the single pane of glass. Remember we used to talk about the single pane of glass?
Yeah.
We need the single pane of AI glass.
Yeah, you need supervisory AI that ties it all together for you.
Right. You need agents in each one of your 30 solutions all going back into a central AI, essentially.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure exists and people are building.
I mean, that's
I don't want to say this stuff doesn't exist. Maybe I just don't know about it yet. But
that's basically what we do. We use an orchestrator for that. I don't know. I've seen significant value come out of AI in the examples that I've been exposed to. So the kinds of problems when I was an analyst that were really, really annoying were like things that you knew before you opened it were likely to be a false positive, but you still had to open it and analyze it, right? Those low-hanging fruit type scenarios, I've seen significant, like 10, 20% workload reduction in SOC workers by cutting out those things that, hey, we know it's going to be likely to be non-malicious based on history, based on the context of the customer, et cetera.
I think for security operations, certainly we've got a lot of tooling and a lot of great solutions, but that's still not actual IT operations, right?
Fair.
You're looking for the security event, and you can find it maybe better with AI, more easily with AI, free up some of your time. But there's still then I have to do forensics. Then I have to patch something. I have to reconfigure something. Where is it helping with the actual like rubber meets the road IT operations?
I mean, isn't Claude Cowork that single pane of glass in that regard? If you build out your connectors to all your things and create those automations and orchestration within it?
Yeah, I mean, it could exist, probably does exist, but are people hesitant to do that? Like if I have a fleet of 100,000 workstations and my interface is an LLM that has agents that's connected to patch all the things, am I just in a prompt going, yeah, go apply this patch and tell me about it? Probably not, because they're your automation hesitant because you've been burned by it before.
You would ask your prompt, you'd ask your AI agent, how do I plan this? How do I deploy it and test it effectively and roll it back if it's no good? And then have it guide you through that.
Yep. Agreed.
And
there has to be companies implementing, working on this for, these patch and management solutions. There must be.
And I'm thinking you get another piece here with the AI. You can scale up. Like, remember when we used to do we'd want to do regression testing before rolling out something, but you could only do how many because it was all human based. Now with AI, you have the potential to test a real big subset, or maybe that's not the right word, but you could significantly increase your ability to make sure things aren't going to go bump in the night. Huge boon to the IT folks. No idea what it costs to do that, but we have the capability to really make ourselves far more comprehensive, far less arm waving. We don't know. We hope so. It's not going to be overnight, but
on my small scale, just the naked Claude has been able to do this just fine. I've asked it, should I do this? What are the pros and cons? What are the ways to do it? What do you recommend? And I get intelligent advice.
Well, but then you could say, I've got a enterprise of 150,000 nodes. Could you check for anomalies under which this configuration will be a problem?
And you create a skill that's specific to that. The skills have been really helpful with maintaining context and reducing context drift, for me at least. So I built a few different skills today just to focus on a particular type of task, because I was noticing that it would kind of either start to make new assumptions or revert to a generalized set of assumptions for what I wanted as a result. That's been helpful, but I mean, yeah, it's I'm kind of getting into a lot of really complex click whir type of automation actions that really need consistent specific results all the time. Do we have non-AI story?
Yeah.
What?
Oh, EDRChoker. EDRChoker is awesome. It's called EDRChoker. It's such a cool idea.
That title caught my attention.
There's other bypass techniques for EDRs that essentially tune the Windows firewall, or what's the other? There's a Windows filtering service as well. WFP, Windows filtering, something I don't remember what it stands for. But basically, there's been other techniques that whatever EDR you're running, configure the Windows firewall to prevent it from phoning home and giving the data back, to whatever cloud instance or whatever it's reporting back to. Ooh. And there's protections in Windows, right, that prevent a threat actor from adding a rule, that prevents Defender from talking back. But this EDRChoker doesn't add a denied policy. It adds a QoS, quality of service rule, that restricts the traffic to 8 bits per second. And what they say in the article, it forces the TLS handshakes and telemetry uploads to time out, effectively isolating the agent from its back end. I was like, that's pretty novel. I think that was really cool.
That must be wicked to detect. Holy cow.
Right? Well, I guess you got to audit your QoS policies. I mean, you should really never have a policy that exists like this, right?
No. But I'm thinking you're looking at your EDR. It's running. It's talking to the back end service really slow, but it's functioning. And so you've got to look somewhere else. So I'm like, wow.
There's probably a lot of other choke points in a network where you could do this too.
Ooh.
Yep.
That's really neat.
It's an effective technique, I think.
Yeah.
It's evil.
Isn't that awesome?
It is.
I mean, that
Zero
might easily,
Solarium. Yeah, the link is in the show notes. Zero Solarium. EDR choking telemetry stream blocks EDR.
That might easily just be handed off to IT before it goes. Like, security team may get an alert, may not. Either way, it's probably going to end up with IT, who may not necessarily focus on it as a security risk. So I've been reading more and more about threat actors being more intentional about churning hours on the security and the IT time, to distract or kind of overwhelm them. This would probably fall into that a little bit too, because it'd be quiet. And then you would have to figure out potentially whether it's just a regular old problem or an attack.
Right. Same thing with Centurion, which is titled as Bring Your Own Execution Environment, is Praetorian's experimental stealth environment for running red team payloads. So instead of letting Windows execute the code directly, you bring along a tiny custom virtual machine, run the payloads inside of it, which we've seen, right? We've seen threat actors try and use virtual technology. What's different about this one, though, is the VM doesn't run a full operating system. It's a tiny purpose-built embedded runtime that is specifically tuned to like run your payload code, a small set of binaries with its own loader, its own networking stack, its own TLS directly on top of the host process, using the host OS only when it needs to call specific APIs. So it really abstracts everything out into like a separate runtime, almost like a bytecode interpreter, but it's running as a VM is kind of how I thought of it.
Wow.
It sounds like a cheroot jail.
Yeah. Except it's not using the operating system. It's inside of a virtual environment.
So before you brought that up, I was thinking about that attack on that one stock exchange executive who they were in a system and they left their stuff running, but it was masquerading as the Adobe Updater and the Microsoft OneDrive configuration tool or something. Basically, they looked normal processes, but they weren't. But harder than hell to tell they weren't real unless you look really close.
Yeah.
One was operating out of a different path. I forgot what the other giveaway on the other one was, but you really got to, and it was reminding me, you were also reminding me of my friend Roger tells me he's taught his staff treat every Tuesday as Patch Tuesday. And they're actually no longer twitching the one Tuesday of the month. They're much more common, of course. So he's a little easier too. Not that they're never glitches, but it's smoothed out the curve.
Well, I've always been I got that from the DevOps philosophy of breaking work down into smaller steps and doing it as you go, rather than incurring more technical debt. Like I've always said that patching and security in general, right, is a constant process that we need to constantly break down into smaller steps. It's like if you wait, and like you said this a million times, and we're all guilty of it, but if you just put off those updates, the longer you put it off, the more technical debt you have, and the harder it's going to be to apply that update. Whereas if you do it as you go, maybe it's not pressing, maybe there's not a security vulnerability, but there's an update. Well, I should apply it, because if I don't, those are just going to queue up, and going from version 1 to version 5 is a significant amount of work that you have to do all at once rather than slowly over time.
I want to interject something. Oh, I thought you were done.
Go ahead.
Well, back to what Lee was saying. It brought to mind something I was reminded of recently about the number of people hiding like affairs through and doing all communication through shared Google Docs.
Oh yeah, students try to do that because they all have Chromebooks and Google accounts, and they've tried to do that for years. And if it's a smaller smaller, like it's not the entire internet using Google cloud services, but it's just your school, they've figured that out. They figured out how to monitor that.
Well, but this was also cases within Google headquarters itself.
Wow.
Right.
Well, that was like the really old threat actor technique where they would have a mailbox, but they would just communicate through like draft messages. They would just create a draft.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. They wouldn't actually send the email.
I feel like I did something a long time ago that was in the headers too. I don't remember.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways to hide data. I thought the virtual machine thing was cool because like you're running a program, but you're running it in such a way that it's like it's hidden from the operating system as much as possible, which I thought was cool. And they used an LLM to code it, and they improved upon the previous attempts at doing this. So I thought it was super cool. Also, what was cool was if you want your own mobile device interception proxy, you can use like my man in the middle beast that's on my GitHub. And there's lots of other ways to do it. But one easy way is you can just, take a MikroTik router and using built-in functionality with like a clicky interface, just build NAT rules that intercepts all the traffic and sends it to your Burp Suite proxy. No, that was great. That's a great. It saves you a lot of time, right? You're just going to get a MikroTik router, uses built-in functionality, and it creates an interceptor out of it. I like that. I spent a lot of hours building my own tool set for that when I could have just used a MikroTik router. I guess my man in the middle beast does a lot more, but awesome. Was there any last articles in here? Building the Homelab was really cool. This one, I was hoping Josh was going to be here. He moved a 4 NUC Proxmox cluster to a Minis Forum MS02 Ultra with 256 gigabytes of DDR5, 8 terabyte NVMe, and 25 gigabit Ethernet. And I started trying to price that out. It actually wasn't bad. I didn't get a configuration like that. A lot of it was out of stock, but the Minis Forum boxes were pretty cool. And he did lots of cool stuff, like monitoring his APC UPS dashboard and stuff like that. It was pretty cool. So make sure you check that out. It's my story number 17. And that's probably all we have time for. Well, thanks everyone for coming on the show this evening. Thanks everyone for listening and watching this edition of Paul's Security Weekly. We'll see you next time. Over and out.